Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into ADT's latest proxy statement. It's like unwrapping a super complicated gift, but don't worry, we'll decode it together. There's even a board declassification vote happening, which sounds like they are removing the old board. You don't want to miss it. Let's kick things off with a letter from the top. Jim DeVries, ADT's chairman, president, and CEO, is pretty upbeat, it seems. He calls 2024 a historic year, celebrating ADT's 150th anniversary. He highlights record high recurring monthly revenue, record customer retention, and strong cash generation. It's like saying, hey, we're old, but we're still making money. Looking ahead to 2025, the focus is on connecting and protecting customers through smart home and residential security offerings. The letter also mentions welcoming 4 new independent board members and committing to governance improvements, which sounds like they're trying to freshen things up. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty, the election of directors. 4 Class 2 directors are up for re-election: Marques Coleman, Paul J. Smith, Matthew E. Winter, and Suzanne Yoon. Seems like a pretty standard board shuffle, nothing too exciting here, but these folks will have until 2028, so they are locked in if they win. Before you vote, ADT wants you to know what skills these folks bring to the table. There's a handy chart showing who has executive experience, public company board experience, and so on. Basically, it's like saying these people know what they're doing, trust us. Let's meet the candidates. Marques Coleman is from Apollo, bringing private equity expertise to the table. Paul Smith is an executive vice president at State Farm, so he brings knowledge of insurance and enterprise transformation. Matthew Winter is the lead independent director, bringing experience from the Allstate Corporation. And Suzanne Yoon is the founder of a private equity firm, Kinsey Capital Partners. Speaking of the board, ADT is officially embracing the end of being a controlled company under NYC rules. What does that mean? Basically, Apollo's voting power dropped below 50%, so they're no longer calling all the shots. They're complying with requirements to make their board more independent, which is usually a good thing. Here's a fun fact. ADT doesn't have a specific policy about separating the roles of chairman and CEO. They like to keep things flexible. Right now, the president and CEO, Mr. DeVries, is also the chairman. Time to check in on the committees. The audit committee keeps an eye on things like financial reporting and internal controls. The compensation committee handles executive pay, making sure everyone's getting paid fairly. The non-management directors meet regularly without management, and the lead independent director can call and lead these meetings. It's like the grown-ups having a secret meeting to keep things in check. Alright, who's running the show? We have James DeVries as chairman, president, and CEO. Jeffrey Licasar is president, corporate development and transformation, and chief financial officer. That's a long title. Here's an important personnel change. Donald Young will be retiring from his position, and Fawad Ahmad will be stepping up as executive vice president and chief operating and customer officer. Let's get to the money. This section talks about how ADT pays its executives. The philosophy is all about paying for performance, aligning management's interests with stockholders, and attracting top talent. Basically, if the company does well, the executives get paid well. The 2024 highlights are all about strong financial results, high customer retention, and investing in the future with the ADT Plus platform. For 2024, they had revenue growth of 5% year over year and a record year-end recurring monthly revenue balance. The CEO, James DeVries, is evaluated on operating results, long-term strategy, and team leadership. Under his leadership, ADT delivered top-line growth, unlocked shareholder value, and drove strategic differentiators. For the 2024 fiscal year, the annual incentive plan was approved with a design that reflects the company's focus as a primarily subscriber-based business with significant recurring monthly revenue. Adjusted EBITDA came in at $2,577 million against a target of $2,577 million and ending. Recurring monthly revenue RMR was $59.5 million against a target of $261.5. For 2024, long-term incentives were delivered in the form of stock options. The reason? They want to make sure executives only benefit if the stockholders. Back to what the stockholders think. The previous vote on the 2024 advisory vote on executive compensation got 99% of the vote. The executive compensation program has 3 main parts: base salary, annual cash incentives, and long-term equity compensation. Then there are the benefits and retirement programs. They also highlight what they don't do, like guarantee pay increases or bonus payouts. Here's a peek at the target bonus opportunities for 2024. CEO DeVries gets 150% of his base salary as a bonus, while other executives get between 80%, and 100%. As for the top levels, base salary of chairman, president, and chief executive officer is $1,024 with a total of $16,119, and executive vice president and chief operating officer is $1 paid, being $5 with $644,638 with the actual bonus paid being $575 and $744,638 also is $605,724. Alden thousand, all 160 executive officer is $164,000. 1,064,165 TED officer is $1,164,165 TED officer is $1,144,624,624 with a total of. Next up, all execs get the benefit of a supplemental savings and retirement plan, SSRP, to save on taxes. Now, let's talk about related person transactions. This is where things get interesting. Some executives have Class A2 units in Top Code Parent, which has agreements about who gets paid first when the company earns profits. ADT has a close relationship with Apollo Global Management. Despite Apollo no longer having majority control, they still have influence, including director nomination rights and approval rights over certain matters. Also mentioned were two offerings where certain Apollo affiliates sold stock and ADT repurchased some of the shares. ADT has a close relationship with State Farm, since State Farm committed up to $300 million to an opportunity fund. ADT also paid Rackspace US Inc. about $4.33 million for server hosting services in 2024. Rackspace is an affiliate of Apollo. ADT appears to no longer need it after their internal project completed. The audit committee signed off on the financial statements and recommended POC as the independent auditor. All is good with PBOC, it seems, although the audit fees jumped from about $6.3 million in 2024. Speaking of fees, let's break them down. Audit fees were $433 million in 2024. Audit-related fees were $85,000, and tax fees were $649,000. The decrease in audit-related fees probably related to the carve-out procedures related to the divestiture of our commercial business during 2023. Time for another vote. Stockholders get to give an advisory thumbs up or thumbs down to the executive compensation. Here's the big one. A vote on whether to declassify the board of directors. This means getting rid of the staggered terms and having all directors up for election every year instead of having them in terms. The board wants to declassify. They are thinking about what's best for the shareholders. Here's another one. Create a stockholder right to call a special meeting with 25% of the common stock. The board seems to be very concerned about shareholder rights. Who owns ADT? Apollo Funds own 32.9%, State Farm owns 15.7%, and Google owns 6.5%. The Vanguard Group comes in at 5.3%,